Hey guys, what's going on? This is Vince here from Team Gins. How's it going, everybody? I know I haven't made a video in quite some time. My apologies. I've been incredibly busy, but here I am today. I am here to discuss the Fabled deck. For those of you who've seen some of my videos in the past, you know that Fabled is one of my all-time favorite decks. It's not the most competitive deck. I know that Dark Worlds are obviously better. But to be honest, Fabled is still a very fun deck. It's still a very fast deck, and the only thing that it has over the Dark World deck is just the fact that it can make Quasar very easily. If you get shooting Quasar Dragon out, it's basically game. Your opponent really can't come back from that. So, without further ado, I'm just going to do a little deck recap quickly, and then I'm going to do a little discussion on the deck and tell you some of the great combos that have been working out this format. First off is the one Fabled Raven. Still only really like him at 1. He's a great discard outlet. He's incredibly explosive if you open up with him, but there's going to be times where in mid-game, you don't have anything to discard, then he's just a dead draw. If you open him up with him mid-game, you're dealing with a 1300 attack monster that's also a tuner. If you don't have anything else in your hand besides him, you basically just lost, just because of the Fabled Raven. But if you open up with him, and you open up with cards like Cerberus, Ganassia, Luri, Cruz. Raven is ridiculous in that case. But he's still really great discard outlet, so you gotta really run him at 1. Next up is one of the best cards in the deck, the Fabled Cerberus. Obviously, you gotta run him. Some people run 3. I only really like him at 2, just because sometimes you don't draw him. You don't want to draw him too much. There are going to be times where you draw him, you don't have a discard outlet. There's going to be plenty of times where that happens. So I think that 2 Cerberus is just the perfect amount. 3 Chawa. Chawa is one of the best discard outlets in the deck. If you don't know what he does, you can discard another Fabled to special summon him. So if you discard Ganassia, you get to special summon that Ganassia, and you get the special summon off Chawa. You get to go into Armory Arm that way very easily. Not to mention, you don't waste your normal summon, which in this deck, you barely ever normal summon. So, Chawa is definitely, you got to run at 3. Next up is 2 Fabled Ganassia. When he gets discarded, he gets special summon and he becomes an 1800 beater. He's one of the most important cards in here. He synchro summons with Cerberus, awesome, perfectly. He goes into your Hyper Librarian plays, your Catastor plays, so Ganassia you definitely need to run 2. There are times where I wish I had a 3rd one, just because he does get removed from play if he was special summoned that way, but at the moment Ganassia 2 is running just perfectly. Next up is a tech card that I love, the Fabled Nozuchi. Nozuchi at times can be a major dead draw, but when he goes off, and if you open up with him, he's probably one of the best cards that you can have in the deck. If you open up with Nozuchi, Cerberus, and Chawa, or another discard special summon, like, if you open up with Nozuchi, Luri, and Cerberus, you can discard Luri to special summon Nozuchi, and then you get to special summon Cerberus, and you can go into instantly Fabled Dragon or TG Hyper Librarian, and again, you don't waste your normal summon that way. So Nozuchi, if you draw into him at the certain points, he could be a huge plus. So that's why I still love running him. I used to run him at 2 when he used to just piss me off, drawing him off too late. If you open up with him, if you draw him mid game, yet again, he's just a 1200 non-tuner, so it's kind of hard to do anything with Nozuchi then. Okay, next up is the 3 Fabled Grimro. You really got to run 3 Fabled Grimro. Not only is she the main searcher of the deck, she opens up a lot of your great combos. If you open up with like card destruction, you can use your normal summon to like bring out the Fabled, I don't know, for the sake of example, the Fabled Ganassia. Then you can use your Grimro to search for Cerberus, and then you can use your card destruction to discard your whole hand, get a new hand, and then special summon cards like Cerberus and Luri. So Grimro really opens up options, not to mention she's a 1700 beater. Occasionally you are going to want to exceed with her. So, Grimro you definitely have to run at 3. 2 Cruz, however you say it. I know a lot of people that run 3. I think that 2 is just the perfect number. I think Crust is just, if you're going to be drawing her too much if you run her at 3, because there's going to be times where you don't have that discard outlet to discard her and special summon something from the graveyard. But if you open up with Crust, it's really just perfectly It could open up so many good combos. So I think 2 is just the right number. The one Kushano, I know back in the day when people kind of ran Fabled a little bit more, people ran 2 or 3 Kushano, and also had to run like Foolish Burial just to get it into the graveyard quickly. I'm going to talk about Fabled Kushano later. You still need to run one because it's just such a great discard outlet. But there's a new great combo that is going around with Fables with Kushano, so we'll get to that in a minute. 2 Fabled Lurry, really important, goes into your Formula Synchron plays, that goes into shooting Quasar, so you gotta run 2 Fabled Lurry, not to mention he's an easy special summon with card destruction or Dark World dealings. 2 Tour Guides, Sangan and Night Assailant. The Tour Guide engine is so broken in this deck, it's ridiculous. Not only are you getting your Sangans to basically search for anything in this deck, your Night Assailant, which if you have in your hand, the one thing I do, excuse me, Tour Guides plus Sangan is ridiculous. You get to search for anything. Tour Guides plus Kushano is basically what you're going to want to go for. If you open up a Tour Guide, you got a great discard outlet on your hand. You normal summon Tour Guide, you special summon Kushano from your deck or your hand, you get Kushano in the graveyard, and you got basically a discard outlet that you can use over and over and over again. Sangan is very important. As I just said, Night Assailant I love in this deck just because it's not a dead draw. It's really not a dead draw in this deck. Just because of its second effect. You don't usually use its second effect in most decks. Usually you only use the destroy your opponent's monster flip effect. But he has a special effect that says that if he's discarded to the graveyard, then you get to get a flip effect monster to your hand. This lets you abuse Morphing Jar. Morphing Jar obviously is one of the most important cards in this deck. Late game, Fableds are really kind of crappy. If your opponent clears the board and you draw into a Fabled Cerberus, that's it. You're basically lost. There's no real combos you can head off. But if you draw into Morphing Jar, you're back right in the game. Not to mention, if you open up with Morphing Jar and a hand full of discard effects, Morphing Jar can become really powerful. And Night Assailant lets you abuse him a second time. Dark World dealings, you need to run 3. I used to only run 2. 3 is ridiculous. Card destruction, you have to run it. Triple Upstart Goblin just gets you the cards that you need quicker. Fableds can be very explosive, so the 1,000 life point disadvantage really doesn't mean much. Mind Control, probably one of the best cards in this deck. You're going to be synchro summoning like crazy. Why not use your opponent's monsters? Double Smashing Ground. Fables, they don't really have any destruction effects, and you don't really have a lot of big beaters either, so Smashing Ground is really important in this deck. Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, and Book of Moon, those are staples that you just really have to run. I sometimes side out Book of Moon, sometimes I think it's a little too slow, but you're always going to have your Monster Reborns and Dark Holes. Reckless Greed is really important. I've been trying this out. It really gets you the cards that you need faster. Especially works like late game if you draw into the Fabled Raven and normal summon it. Activate Reckless Greed, get some discard effects, and then you can use them with the Fabled Raven. It just gives you a little bit more synergy in the deck. Makes the deck faster as it should be. So Reckless Greed is definitely needed. And the final card is Starlight Road. Starlight Road I still think is like a card that you have to run in here. Fabled swarm the field very fast, and with double Torrential, double Mirror Force, and Dark Hole running around, as well as Black Rose plays and stuff like that, Starlight Road is very important. Now I'm just going to go over a couple of quick cards that you can use in this deck that I have occasionally to some extent. Chaos Sorcerer, I do like it just because there's so many lights and darks, but at the same time, Fables is a deck that's very, very fast, and Chaos Sorcerer kind of slows it down. If you use Reckless Greed, draw into 2 cards, one of them is Chaos Sorcerer, it's going to be kind of like not what you're looking for. You're going to be wanting to look for Fabled Cerberus, Fabled Chawas, discard outlets and stuff like that. Chaos Sorcerer just kind of slows it down. Not to mention Pot of Avarice, which I forgot to mention, is one of the main cards in this deck. If you're removing cards from play to special summon it, that's one less card that you're going to be able to use for Pot of Avarice. So I don't really like it that much. Snipe Hunter, I'm kind of iffy on. just because it wastes my normal summon. He's a great discard outlet, obviously, and he gets around so many big beaters and so many things that this deck has problems getting around. But to be honest, I find more than anything it's just a hassle to get out. I don't like wasting my normal summon on him. I do love his effect, and I do love that he's basically a great discard outlet, but to be honest, it's not worth it sometimes. My Body is a Shield, I love it in this deck. It's just another Starlight Road, and I do like it that it gets around like Insectors and stuff like that, even though you don't have to worry about Insectors that much anymore. MST, Night Beam, and Heavy Storm. Fableds have a lot of great OTKs, especially with Shooting Quasar, and you're going to want to make sure that your back row is clear to do it. Bottomless, just because your opponent is going to be summoning a lot of big monsters, and Fables don't really have many big monsters, so you got to watch out for that. And finally, Dark Smog. These are all just cards that you can possibly go in there, get in there. I occasionally side in Dark Smog and use it with Cross to get instant monster reborns and stuff like that, or like if you draw into a second tour guide that you really don't need, or something along those lines. But that's the deck overall. It used to be not working at all in this format, but now that I've kind of sped it up a little, it has a lot of great combos with Shooting Quasar Dragon, TG Hyper Librarian, Fabled Dragon. There's so many great combos now. Not to mention the greatest combo in the deck is Tour Guide plus Kushano, getting out Leviathan Dragon, detaching Leviathan Dragon to get a 2500, detaching Kushano, and getting that instant discard outlet. But that's the deck overall, guys. I hope you enjoy. Take it easy.